Lerato had only been married a few months when she moved into the warm but noisy town of Kasumo, where everyone talked fast and laughed loud. She wanted so much to fit into her husband's family, but Mama Tandi made that dream feel heavy. Mama Tandi always greeted her with a polite smile that looked friendly from far away, but up close it felt sharp, like something hiding behind it. Every time Lerato tried to help or say something kind, Mama Tandi found a small way to brush it off or roll her eyes. Lerato pretended not to notice. She told herself to be patient, to stay calm, to keep peace. So she laughed softly at every little jab, even when it hurt. She tried to act as if those comments were harmless jokes, even when a quiet ache started growing inside her. She loved her husband and wanted to be welcomed, so she swallowed her pride again and again, hoping things would get better. And in that crowded house with people walking in and out all day, Lerato kept trying. She offered help in the kitchen. She complimented Mama Tandi's decorations. She even joined the family gossip circle, though she barely understood half the stories. But no matter how kind she was, Mama Tandi's eyes followed her with suspicion, as if waiting for her to fail. Still, Lerato smiled through it all, holding on to the hope that one day Mama Tandi would see her heart instead of her flaws. As Christmas came closer, the whole town of Kasumo started to feel brighter. People hung lights on their gates, children practiced carols in the street, and shops played the same old songs again and again. Lerato felt excited because it would be her first Christmas with her husband's family. She wanted everything to go well. She bought small gifts for everyone, wrapped them neatly, and even added little notes to show how much she cared. She woke up early on Christmas Eve, dressed in her best dress, and walked to Mama Tandi's house with hope bubbling in her chest. She kept imagining laughter, warm welcomes, and maybe even a small smile of approval from her mother-in-law. But the moment she stepped inside, that hope slipped a little. Mama Tandi didn't even greet her with a hug or a warm hello. She only raised her eyebrows as if she had been waiting. Before Lerato could place the gifts down, Mama Tandi pressed a long list into her hands. The paper was filled from top to bottom with tasks, ingredients, and dishes. Lerato stared at it, confused and surprised. Mama Tandi's voice cut through her shock. She said that since the whole family would gather in her house, someone had to cook everything, and young women need to prove their worth. The words felt like stones dropping into Lerato's chest. She blinked slowly, trying to understand if she had heard correctly. She looked up and saw Mama Tandi watching her with a serious face, almost like she was waiting for Lerato to complain so she could scold her. But Lerato didn't want to start a fight. She wanted peace, acceptance, and a happy Christmas. So she took a deep breath, forced a small, shaky smile, and nodded. She whispered that she would do her best, even though her heart already felt tired. Mama Tandi didn't thank her. She simply turned and walked away, leaving Lerato standing alone with the heavy list in her hands. Lerato read it again, her eyes widening at the number of dishes. There were traditional meals, snacks, drinks, desserts, and even last-minute items that would take hours to prepare. She felt overwhelmed but tried to stay calm. She tucked the list into her apron, tied her hair back, and stepped into the kitchen. The kitchen felt too big and too quiet at the same time. Pots and pans were stacked everywhere. Ingredients were scattered across the table as if someone had prepared for a battle. Lerato sighed softly, then rolled up her sleeves. She told herself she could do it, even if it took all day. She wanted to prove something too, not her worth to Mama Tandi, but her heart to the family she had married into. As she started chopping vegetables, she kept hearing Mama Tandi's words in her head. Prove your worth. Those words hurt, but they also pushed Lerato to work harder. She moved quickly around the kitchen, setting pots on the stove, checking recipes, washing dishes, and trying not to let the pressure get to her. Whenever she felt a tear forming, she blinked fast and kept moving. She didn't want anyone to see her sad. She wanted them to see her effort. From the living room, she could hear Mama Tandi talking loudly on the phone, telling someone that she was busy preparing everything for the family. Lerato paused for a second, feeling a sting in her chest. She wasn't even being seen. But instead of letting the sadness drown her, she took a deep breath and kept cooking. She reminded herself that she came early because she cared, not because she wanted praise. Hours passed and the kitchen grew hotter. Lerato's hands were tired, her back ached, and her legs felt heavy. But she didn't stop. Every time she felt weak, she imagined the family enjoying the meal. She imagined laughter filling the house. She imagined someone finally noticing her effort. And that simple hope kept her going. Even though Mama Tandi had given her a painful welcome, Lerato held onto her kindness. She wanted this Christmas to be beautiful, even if she had to carry the whole day on her own. The kitchen slowly turned into Lerato's battlefield, a place where she had to fight her tiredness, her fear, and even her own tears. She started early in the morning, but time moved so fast that she barely noticed the sun climbing higher. The counters were filled with vegetables, spices, pots, and bowls. The air grew warmer every hour, and the smell of food mixed with the smell of sweat on her forehead. She chopped onions until her fingers felt numb, stirred boiling pots until her arms ached, and tasted sauces again and again to make sure everything was perfect. Every few minutes, she stopped to wipe the sweat from her face with the back of her hand. Sometimes the spices would burst out of a jar and fly everywhere, making her sneeze or cough. Sometimes a pot lid would fall with a loud clang and make her jump. She would let out a tiny laugh at moments like that, not because they were funny, but because if she didn't laugh, she knew she might start crying. Her laugh was soft and shaky, more like a little escape from the pressure she felt inside her chest. But even in that hot and noisy kitchen, Lerato kept working. She moved from one dish to another like she was dancing alone, trying hard not to think about how big the task was. She remembered the way her mother taught her to cook with calm hands and a warm heart, and she tried to hold onto that memory. Still, it was hard, especially whenever she felt someone watching her. Mama Tandi stood in the doorway from time to time, her arms tightly crossed over her chest as if she was checking whether Lerato would fail. She didn't offer help, not even once. She didn't say thank you or good job. She didn't even smile. Instead, every now and then, she let out a small, sarcastic comment that cut through the air sharper than any knife Lerato was using. "Don't burn the meat like last time," she said, even though Lerato had never burned anything before. "Are you sure you know how to make this? My son likes it a certain way." Or she would say, "Young women these days get tired too quickly," just loud enough for Lerato to hear. Each comment landed right on the sore place in Lerato's heart, the place where she kept all the things she tried to ignore. The heat from the stove already felt like it was burning her skin, but Mama Tandi's words burned deeper. Still, Lerato bit her lip and kept going. She didn't want to look weak. She didn't want Mama Tandi to think she couldn't handle it. At one point, Lerato dropped a spoon and it rolled under the table. As she bent down to pick it up, a tear slipped out before she could stop it. She quickly wiped it away and stood straight again, hoping Mama Tandi hadn't seen. But Mama Tandi had already walked away, shaking her head as if Lerato had disappointed her again. That made Lerato's chest tighten, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. She reminded herself she wasn't doing all this for Mama Tandi's approval. She was doing it because she wanted the family to enjoy Christmas. She wanted them to feel happy and full and loved. Hours went by and the kitchen grew messier, but the food started coming together beautifully. Pots simmered gently, trays filled with roasting dishes smelled warm and rich, and steam floated in the air like tiny clouds. Lerato moved around the kitchen with tired but determined hands. Even when her shoulders felt heavy and her feet throbbed, she didn't stop. She talked to herself softly to stay focused, sometimes humming a song she learned as a child. She imagined her mother standing beside her, smiling proudly. By the time the clock reached late afternoon, Lerato could barely feel her legs, but she looked at the dishes she had finished and felt a tiny spark of pride. She had survived the day so far, even with the heat, the pressure, and Mama Tandi's cold eyes watching her like a shadow. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew one thing for sure: she had given everything she had. And even if no one noticed, she kept going, because her heart was stronger than every harsh word thrown at her. Lerato's feet felt heavy, as if each step was pulling her deeper into the floor. Her eyes burned from the smoke and steam, and every time she blinked, they stung a little more. But she didn't stop. She couldn't stop. The kitchen was overflowing with half-finished dishes, boiling pots and ingredients waiting for her hands. Even though her whole body begged her to rest, she pushed herself forward, telling her heart to stay strong. She remembered her mother's soft voice teaching her how to cook when she was a little girl. Her mother always said that food tasted better when it was made with love. Those memories felt warm, the kind of warm that wrapped around her like a blanket. So she tried to hold that feeling close, even though everything around her felt cold and tiring. While she stirred a pot of stew, Lerato whispered the old songs her mother used to hum. At first her voice shook, but then it grew softer and steadier. The songs helped her calm her breathing, even though she still felt a knot of stress inside her chest. As she chopped vegetables, the rhythm helped her hands move smoothly. When her tears slipped down her cheeks, they didn't fall loudly. They fell quietly, mixing with the heat of the room. Sometimes she even smiled through the tears, because something funny would happen, like oil popping out of the pan or dough sticking to her fingers. Her laugh sounded tired, but it kept her going, like a small spark of hope in the middle of all the pressure. She thought about how Mama Tandi had been watching her the whole day, judging every movement, every breath. Mama Tandi's eyes always felt like they were waiting for her to make a mistake. The thought made Lerato's stomach twist, but she forced herself to focus on the food instead. She didn't want fear to spoil the dishes. She didn't want panic to ruin something she had worked so hard on. So she hummed louder, almost trying to drown out the sound of Mama Tandi's voice in her memory. Young women must prove their worth, Mama Tandi had said earlier. Those words stayed in her mind like thorns. But Lerato wasn't cooking to prove anything anymore. She wasn't cooking for praise. She wasn't cooking to impress Mama Tandi. She was cooking because she wanted the family to feel joy when they sat down together. She wanted them to taste the love she poured into each dish. She wanted them to feel at home, even if she didn't feel fully accepted yet. Every time she remembered that, her heart softened a little. She imagined the family laughing around the table, sharing stories, feeling happy. The picture gave her strength. Even when her back ached so badly she had to lean against the counter for a moment, she wiped her face and kept going. She tasted the soup, added more salt, tasted again, and nodded. She arranged plates on the counter. She cooked rice, baked bread, grilled meat, prepared salads, and checked the oven every few minutes. The smell of the food filled the kitchen with warmth, and for a second she felt proud. She had done so much already. The kitchen looked like a storm had passed through it, but the food looked beautiful. And that made her heart shine even through all the exhaustion. Still, a small worry stayed in her mind. What if the family didn't like the food? What if they judged her the same way Mama Tandi did? The thought scared her, but she pushed it away. She knew she had done her best. She had cooked with her whole heart. She whispered to herself that love could be tasted, and maybe, just maybe, it would be enough. With a deep breath, Lerato wiped her hands on her apron, took another shaky step toward the stove, and continued working. She didn't know what the family would say. She didn't know if anyone would notice her effort. But she kept going anyway, holding tightly to the hope that her food would speak for her, even if she couldn't find the courage to speak for herself. When the first knock came at the door, Lerato froze for a moment with a spoon still in her hand. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Soon another voice arrived, then another, and suddenly the whole house filled with warm noise. Laughter burst through the rooms, children ran around with excitement, and relatives hugged each other loudly as if they hadn't seen each other in years. Lerato peeked from the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. She felt small and shy, almost invisible in all the movement. She wanted to step forward and greet everyone, but her legs didn't listen. She stayed in the back near the stove, holding her breath as the noise grew. The house felt alive, but she felt like a tiny cloud floating quietly in a loud sky. Mama Tandi walked around greeting everyone with her wide smile, acting as if she had spent the whole day preparing everything. She even cleared her throat loudly, trying to catch people's attention. She wanted to look like the perfect host. Every time someone complimented how good the house smelled, Mama Tandi lifted her chin a little higher, almost expecting applause. Lerato watched her from behind the kitchen wall, feeling a mix of tiredness and fear. She didn't mind if Mama Tandi took the credit. She only hoped the food turned out well. Her hands were still shaking from working all day. She was scared someone might find a mistake, some small thing she forgot, and talk about her behind her back. When the family finally sat at the dining table, Lerato stood completely still. She didn't even dare to breathe. She pressed her hand against her chest to calm her heartbeat. From the kitchen, she could hear the sound of plates being lifted, silverware scraping gently, chairs moving. Then came the first reactions. At first there was silence. Silence so long that Lerato thought she might faint. She closed her eyes and prayed softly, hoping she had not disappointed anyone. Then, out of nowhere, someone let out a loud gasp. "Who made this?" a voice shouted in shock. Another voice followed, laughing in amazement. "This is unbelievable." Then more voices joined in, each one louder than the next. "This chicken tastes better than anything I've had all year. These vegetables are perfect. Who cooked this magic? Whoever cooked this deserves a trophy." In seconds, the entire dining room exploded with joy. People clapped. Some laughed. One uncle even asked if they had ordered from a fancy restaurant. Children shouted that the food tasted like a festival. The whole room filled with excitement, the kind that rises so fast it feels like fireworks bursting in the air. Lerato's hands flew to her mouth. She almost dropped the cloth she was holding. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. She wasn't sure if she was dreaming or awake. Mama Tandi's smile froze on her face. She blinked, swallowed hard, and tried to keep her pride steady. She cleared her throat again, louder this time, as if preparing to announce something great. "Well," she said with a sweet voice, "you know I tried my best." But before she could finish her sentence, someone laughed from across the table. "Ah, Mama Tandi, stop joking. You didn't cook this." Another voice joined. "We know you don't even like staying in the kitchen." The whole table roared with laughter. Someone joked that she must have hired a professional chef secretly. Someone else said, "Please bring out the real cook. We want to thank them." Lerato felt her knees weaken. She leaned against the counter, her heart full of emotions she didn't know how to handle. She had spent the whole day afraid, tired, and unsure of herself, and now these voices felt like little pieces of sunlight landing on her skin. She didn't step out yet. She simply listened, her heart pounding so loudly she thought everyone could hear it. She breathed in deeply, letting that joy wash over her after such a long and painful day. She had no idea what would happen next, but in that moment she felt something warm bloom inside her, a soft, gentle pride she had never felt before. Mama Tandi sat at the head of the table with her back straight and her chin lifted, trying to look as calm as possible, while the family continued shouting praise from every corner of the dining room. She looked left, then right, trying to put on a smile that seemed sweet, but it wobbled at the edges. For a moment she stayed quiet, as if trying to choose her words carefully. Then she gave a small satisfied nod and said softly, "Well, yes, I did try very hard today. I wanted everything to be special for Christmas." Her voice was smooth, almost too smooth, like honey hiding a secret. She clearly wanted the room to believe her. She wanted to hold onto the respect she believed belonged to her as the host. But before she could even blink again, her sister-in-law burst into loud, playful laughter. "Ah, come on, Tandi," she said, shaking her head with a big grin. "Since when have you made anything this good? Even your tea tastes confused." The whole table exploded into laughter so loud the windows almost shook. One cousin nearly choked on his food from laughing. Another aunt slapped the table, saying, "Who are you trying to fool? You burn water." Even the children giggled, pointing their spoons at Mama Tandi as if they knew the joke too. Mama Tandi's smile froze. Her eyes widened a little and she tried to laugh along, but it came out thin and shaky. Someone else added, Say the truth, Mama Tandi. Did you hire a chef from town? Or did an angel come down and cook for us? Because this food tastes like heaven." The laughter repeated, louder this time, bouncing off the walls, filling the house with pure joy. Back in the kitchen, Lerato pressed a hand over her mouth to stop herself from laughing out loud. Her whole body shook with a mixture of nerves and amusement. She had never seen Mama Tandi get teased like this. In fact, she had never even imagined it. The idea of everyone joking about Mama Tandi's cooking was surprising enough to make Lerato want to giggle like a child. She bit her lips so hard it almost hurt, trying to silence the bubbling laughter inside her. Her cheeks warmed, not from the stove's heat but from disbelief. She had spent the whole day being criticized, watched, and judged, and now the same woman who doubted her was getting teased by her own family. Lerato leaned against the counter, her breath coming out shaky as she tried to calm herself. She wasn't happy because Mama Tandi was embarrassed. She was happy because the family's joy felt like a bright light shining after a long, dark day. Every word of praise floated into the kitchen like little breaths of fresh air, easing her tiredness. She pressed her palms together and closed her eyes for a moment, letting the relief wash over her. Her fear from earlier slowly melted away, replaced by a shy happiness that warmed her from the inside. Then she heard footsteps approaching, soft at first, then clearer. The laughter in the dining room softened slightly as someone pushed back their chair. Lerato froze again. Her heart started beating fast, hitting her chest like small drums. She quickly wiped her hands on her apron, straightened her hair, and tried to steady her breathing. She didn't know who was coming. Was it her husband, a cousin, or was it Mama Tandi coming to scold her or warn her to stay quiet? The footsteps grew closer, echoing in the hallway. Lerato's fingers curled around the edge of the counter. Her stomach tightened with mixed emotions, fear, hope, excitement, and tiredness all tangled together. She stood still, waiting, holding her breath as the steps stopped right at the kitchen doorway. In that moment, everything felt slow, silent, and heavy, as if the whole house was watching and waiting to see what would happen next. The footsteps stopped right at the kitchen door, and before Lerato could prepare herself, her husband stepped inside. His face softened the moment he saw her. He didn't need to ask how her day had been. It was written all over her tired eyes, in the way her shoulders slumped, in the smudges of flour on her cheeks. He walked toward her slowly, like he was afraid she might fall apart if he moved too fast. When he reached her, he lifted her chin gently with his fingers. For a second they just looked at each other. He saw the tired sparkle in her eyes, a mix of exhaustion and hope, and the small smile she tried to hide. Then, without a word, he slipped his arm around her waist and pulled her out of the kitchen. Lerato almost tripped because her legs were so tired, but he held her steady. She wanted to protest, to say she wasn't ready to face everyone, but before she could speak, the dining room came into view. The moment the family saw her, the entire room exploded into applause. It was loud and sudden, like fireworks going off in her ears. People stood up from their chairs, clapping, cheering, whistling. Someone shouted, "There she is, the real star." Another cousin clapped so hard the table shook. Lerato froze. She had never been the center of attention before, and definitely not like this. Then she heard a soft awe from one of the aunts when they saw how exhausted she looked. Her apron was stained, her hair messy, and her eyes red from smoke and tears. But instead of judging her, they loved her even more for it. One aunt rushed forward and hugged her tightly. "Thank you, my girl," she whispered into Lerato's ear. "You saved Christmas dinner." Another relative hugged her next, patting her back. A little child wrapped their arms around her legs, saying the food tasted like magic. Every hug made Lerato's heart melt a little more. Lerato tried to laugh, but the sound came out shaky, half laugh, half cry. She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed by all the attention. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She had been so sure people would judge her. She had imagined whispers, criticism, disappointment. Instead, she was hearing joy. Real joy. She laughed again, softer this time, and a warm tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, but another came right after. Her husband squeezed her hand gently, letting her know it was okay to feel everything at once. One uncle lifted his fork and shouted, "This food is better than restaurant food. You cooked like 10 people in one body." The family laughed again. Another cousin added, "Lerato, you saved us from starving. You deserve all the hugs today." Someone else joked, "Next year we're booking her early. No one else should touch the kitchen." The room buzzed with happiness. People called her name from every side. Even the older relatives who rarely talked much gave her warm nods and soft smiles. Lerato felt something inside her start to loosen. The tight knot of fear she had carried all day slowly opened. The weight she had been holding in her chest finally lifted. She looked around the table, at all the smiling faces, at the plates filled with the food she had poured her heart into. For the first time since she arrived that morning, she felt seen, truly seen, not as a girl who had to prove her worth, not as someone who needed to be tested, but as a woman who had given everything from her heart. Her husband leaned toward her and whispered, "I'm proud of you." Those words made her eyes shine even brighter. She took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the moment fill her. She had walked into the kitchen alone that day, but now she stood surrounded by a family who was embracing her with open arms. And in that moment, Lerato realized something she had not expected at all. She hadn't just saved Christmas dinner. She had taken her first real step into this family's heart, and they welcomed her with love she never thought she would find. Mama Tandi stood stiffly in the corner, her arms folded tight as the family kept praising Lerato again and again. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her pride was cracking and everyone could see it. She had spent the whole day expecting Lerato to fail, expecting to complain later, but now the whole family was cheering for the young woman she had doubted from the start. Lerato noticed her standing alone, looking smaller than usual. For a moment she felt a mix of hurt and victory, but she didn't let it grow. Instead of gloating or showing off, she gently walked toward Mama Tandi. The room slowly quieted as people watched what she would do. When Lerato reached her, she gave her a soft smile. It wasn't forced or bitter. It was warm, the kind of smile that came from a good heart. She held out her hand and said kindly, "Mama, please come sit with me." Her voice was gentle, almost shy. Mama Tandi blinked in surprise. No one had expected Lerato to show kindness after the way she had been treated all day. For a second, Mama Tandi didn't move. Then she let out a small, embarrassed laugh, the kind that hides relief. She placed her hand in Lerato's and followed her to the table. The family watched in admiration. Soon the room filled with laughter again. People teased Mama Tandi softly, telling her she should retire from cooking forever. Even she laughed at herself, shaking her head. Stories flowed from every corner, children played under the table, and the house felt warmer than ever. Lerato looked around and felt something settle gently inside her. She realized she had earned her place in this family not by being perfect, not by pleasing everyone, but by staying kind even when it was hard. She discovered strength she never knew she had, and for the first time, Kasumo felt like home.